Hey guys, it's Carmen Sanyovi from Top Flight Family. And as you can see, I am back with my super cool microphone because I still don't have a microphone stand. Anyway, today's video is going to be all about winter packing tips. I think for many of us, our default when we go on vacation is to go somewhere warm. Even for our family, we have really only recently started traveling to places, on purpose, traveling to places that are colder than where we're coming from. So if you are heading somewhere cold and maybe you live in a warm climate, or in the past you've only visited warm climates, you may be somewhat at a loss as to how you pack when you're going somewhere cold. Maybe you are used to just packing swimsuits and bikinis. So if you're going somewhere cold, then it's a whole different ball game. So that's exactly what this video is going to be about today. So just to give you a little bit of background, if you're not familiar with Top Flight Family, that is the name of our channel. It's also our blog. We have a great Instagram account as well. And basically, we like to document our travels. And when I say we, I mean my family. So it's me, my husband, Serge, and our two daughters, Sean and Ella. And we are very passionate about inspiring families to get out there and travel with their kids. Don't keep waiting and putting it off until your kids get older. Do it now. You're going to create great memories, and don't worry about whether they're going to remember or not, because you will remember and you will be capturing all those amazing memories for years to come. So typically our travel tends to veer towards the luxury side of things. So luxury family travel is really our niche. But of course, when it comes to travel, there's a lot of things that don't necessarily need to be high end to be fun. So we really cover the gamut. Before I go on to the topic, I've put together a really fantastic guide. I get questions all the time from parents as to like, oh, what kind of suitcase do you guys use? What kind of gear do you recommend? How do I keep my kids busy on a plane? So I actually put together a guide called the 10 travel products every family should own. And if you want to get your copy, just go to topflightfamily.com/newsletter. And basically, if you put in your email address there, you are going to get emailed that guide. And it's 10 products that we ourselves actually use, from what kind of headphones we buy the kids to use on the plane, to what kind of suitcase we use, what kind of backpacks the girls carry when we're traveling. You can get all of that. And plus, you will also be subscribed to our weekly email newsletter, which is a great way to keep up with all the different content that we create every week, between blog posts and YouTube videos and IGTV videos, and of course, our Instagram photos. You won't miss a thing if you are on our email list. Okay, so let's dive right into it. What are the 5 things that I always recommend that people pack when they are going to a cold destination? So just to kind of preface, these are 5 of my favorite things. It's not necessarily an exhaustive guide to all the things that you're going to need for going to a cold climate. For example, I assume that you will have a hat, you will have a scarf, you will have gloves. So not every single thing is going to be covered. But I am going to go into specifics on some of my favorite things, and why I think that they're so useful, especially if you're going somewhere cold. So the first item is you want to pack a really good moisturizer and a really good occlusive. So let me tackle the moisturizer first. I think that is something that we're all pretty familiar with, lotion, cream, whatever you want to call it. You want to make sure that you pack a pretty heavy duty one, especially if you're going from a warmer climate or a more humid climate to a colder climate. Because 9 times out of 10, if you're going somewhere cold, the weather is also going to be a lot drier, so less humidity in the air. And so that can really take a toll on your skin if you're not careful. So my favorite moisturizer, and I'm going to see if this works, because I don't actually have all of the products with me today that I'm talking about, but I'm going to hold up photos on my phone and see if you guys can see them. Sort of, kind of. Okay. CeraVe, moisturizer in a tub, as it's affectionately called by its fans. So CeraVe moisturizing cream is hands down one of my favorite moisturizers. You can use it on your face as well as your body. And I just like it because it is just really rich, but it doesn't feel greasy at all. It absorbs in the skin really easily, and it's also pretty versatile. Like I will use this moisturizer often even into the summer. In New York City, summers are still pretty hot and humid, not quite as hot and humid as Asia. If I go to Asia, I would probably switch to a lighter one. But I find that this moisturizer just really works year round. And it's a fantastic one for when you're going to a colder climate. Now, obviously, the moisturizer is important, but in addition to that, if you really want to take care of your skin when you're in a cold climate, I highly recommend that you also pack an occlusive. So, what is an occlusive? Well, if I can actually say it. So an occlusive is kind of like a thicker skin product, and it forms a protective barrier on your skin so that all the moisture stays inside. So one of the most well-known occlusives is Vaseline. So just think of that type of kind of texture. It's something that's very thick, that goes on the skin, and it's not necessarily about whatever ingredients it has in and of itself. It's really about that it forms a barrier so that it can prevent the moisture in your skin from escaping. And so that way your skin is able to better absorb it. So, Vaseline is something you can use if you already have that at home. I know a lot of people who also swear by Aquaphor, which is a similar product. But the one that we really like is also by CeraVe, and it is called the CeraVe Healing Ointment. And the texture is, similar to Vaseline or Aquaphor. It's like a very thick, transparent gel, I guess. And it goes on really well. And one thing that I also really like about it is that it works great really all over. We use it on our face, on our bodies, and it also worked great as a lip balm. And in fact, they sell it in I do have these small containers. And so I actually use this as a lip balm. Now, what do you do with an occlusive? So I would say primarily before you go to sleep at night, put on a layer of moisturizer, face and body, and then put a layer of this occlusive over it so that it can kind of like keep all the moisture inside. Now, one thing that you want to be aware of is you don't necessarily want to be wearing an occlusive on the surface of your skin if you're going to be out in the sun. So for example, if you're going skiing, and you've got occlusive on the surface of your skin, it could actually facilitate sunburn. It's a little bit like people who used to I think some people still do, put baby oil on their skin and lay out. It actually kind of helps the sun get into your skin. So that's something you don't want to do. So use it more on parts of your body that are covered by clothes. You don't really want to go out into the sun with a layer of occlusive on your skin. Okay, so that is number one, a good moisturizer and a good occlusive. So number two is smart wool socks. So it's really, really, really important when you're going to a cold climate to have the proper socks. Like this can really make such a huge difference because your feet, when your feet are cold, really your whole body feels colder. And the sock we might typically wear in a not so cold climate really don't cut it necessarily when we go somewhere colder. So my recommendation is get a pair of socks from the brand Smart Wool. Now they tend to be a little bit more expensive. However, they are extremely warm, but they are also sweat wicking. And even though they're warm, your feet never feel hot. Like they just feel incredibly comfortable. So I don't really know what kind of magic goes into these socks, but it keeps your feet warm, but never hot. They never get sweaty, and they're just kind of magical. So skiers and snowboarders really swear by these socks. And there's a reason that they're so popular because they really, really work. So smart wool socks are the way to go. Like I said, they do cost a little bit more than regular socks, but think of them as an investment. If you take good care of them, they could last many, many years. All right, quick tea break. Okay, so that is number two, smart wool socks. Number three, another thing that I really recommend for cold weather is to get a buff. Buff is actually the brand name of this particular product, but you can find, non-branded versions of this as well. But it's think of it like an infinity scarf that's very stretchy, but that holds much closer to your neck. So you've probably seen people wearing these, and maybe you weren't sure exactly what it was or what it was called. But it tends to be made of a thinner, stretchier material, and it's multi-purpose. So you can use it as a scarf, you can pull it up over your mouth, you can use it as a headband. And so here is a photo of 12 ways to wear a buff from the buff. I don't know if that's visible. Okay, so basically you can use it as like a baklava. Is that what it's called? I always get that mixed up with the pastry. Basically, you can wear it as a ski mask, you can wear it as a headband. It's a really versatile product. And the reason that I think it's so important to have one of these when you're in a cold climate, for me, primarily, it's the ability to pull it over my nose and mouth so that I can breathe more easily. I would say one of the coldest places, or at least it felt the coldest because it was very uncomfortable. One of the coldest places we've been so far has been Toronto 2 Christmases ago. So Toronto, usually around the end of December, it's cold, but it's not usually that cold. But it just happened that when we went, it was unseasonably cold. Like even the locals were like, yeah, it's never this cold this time of year. And there was like biting wind. Like it was really, really rough. We could barely kind of stand being outside for more than 5 minutes at a time. And so one thing that really made it very uncomfortable was that it was really uncomfortable to breathe, because it would be like this icy cold air being swept along with these winds that are right in your face. And so when you would breathe in the air, it just felt like awful and scratchy in your nose and your throat. And so one thing that really made a difference was being able to have one of these buffs to just pull over our nose and our mouth so that we could breathe, and it would just feel so much more comfortable. So highly recommend getting one. It's also just a great extra layer around your neck, because sometimes scarves can come unwound and your neck gets exposed, and the more exposed your neck is, the colder you feel. So a buff is definitely a really useful item to have when you're going to a cold destination. Okay, so number 4, when it comes to surviving in a cold destination, is really to have the proper base layers. So, I think this is really something that we learned about once we started skiing and things like that. We realized that, people complain about how cold it is, but very often it's just that they are not adequately dressed for the cold. And adequately dressed doesn't necessarily mean packing on lots of thick layers. I think that was also a preconception I had, that it's like, oh, if you're going to a cold place, you got to wear like 4 sweaters and 3 parkas and walk around like the Michelin Man. And it's really not true. I would say the single thing that makes the biggest difference, other than socks, well, it really is part of the whole thing, is having the proper base layers. And socks really are a part of that, right? But base layers specifically meaning long johns, essentially. So long underwear. So having the proper, here, long underwear. So this is not like a onesie. Don't worry. It's 2 pieces, a top and bottoms. But just having the proper long underwear or base layers makes a huge difference. And it's really amazing because nowadays, the material that these base layers are made of are thinner and thinner. So it doesn't feel like you're wearing a lot of bulky layers. It's actually really comfortable. And when you're shopping for base layers, I would say that the number one thing I can recommend is to go and invest in merino wool. So similar to the smart wool socks, they tend to be a little bit more expensive, but merino wool really is just the best kind of material you can wear for base layers. Because again, just like the smart wool socks, they keep you really, really warm, but you never actually get sweaty. It doesn't get stinky because it just has I think wool has like a natural antibacterial kind of quality to it. so that the bacteria that you give off from your skin and your sweat isn't going to get trapped and get smelly. So again, it's one of those things where it costs a little bit more upfront, but if you think of it as an investment, it's something that if you take care of these items, you can wear for many, many years. And then the good thing about base layers and socks is that people don't usually see them. So you don't have to worry about things going out of style or becoming unfashionable, unlike a jacket or a coat. So, if you invest in the merino wool layers, it's really going to be worth it in the long run. Now, I would say it's definitely worth it for adults. If it's for kids, I mean, if it's in your budget, hey, go ahead. You can get the merino wool. But since kids grow out of clothes much more quickly, then, well, we as adults, we don't grow out of clothes anymore unless we gain weight. But for kids, maybe it's not so worthwhile investing in the merino wool. The synthetic materials that are out there do a really good job as well. But if you're buying a set of base layers for yourself or for your partner, you might consider actually investing in the good stuff. All right, number 5, the final item that I think is a must have if you're going to a cold climate is a long parka like this. So I have mine is from the North Face. Looks kind of similar like this. And I've had mine for 10 years now. It's not the most fashionable item. However, it keeps me really, really warm. And, you may be thinking, okay, obviously you need a coat when you go to a cold climate. That's pretty obvious. But I think the part that is less obvious is buying one that is at least knee length. That makes a tremendous difference because I see a lot of people who have winter coats that stop at their waist and their butts are exposed. And just having that extra layer all the way down to your knees makes a huge difference in keeping you warm. This particular parka that I've had for 10 years, I has been all over the world with me. Serge and I went to Beijing about 10 years ago and we climbed the Great Wall. It was like in the middle of winter and I wore this. It kept me warm. It kept me nice and toasty in Toronto, that awful Christmas when it was super, super cold. I've worn this to Colorado. So it's really makes an enormous difference. You might think, oh, it's just a few extra inches. What's the big deal? But yes, having those few extra inches between a jacket that ends at your waist versus one that ends at your knees makes a huge difference if you're going to a cold climate. All right, well, that is it for me today. These were some of my winter packing tips and some of my favorite items to pack whenever we are heading somewhere cold. So hope you found this useful and please subscribe to our channel for more great family travel tips and also some great family travel vlogs. Thanks for watching. Bye.